You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. She's achieved a level of mastery as a Juno-nominated singer-songwriter with a gold album and a multi-platinum single on her long list of accomplishments. And she just happened to have won season 4 of Canadian Idol as well. So welcome to the podcast, Avila. Eva, how are you? And how excited are you for your upcoming 44-date North American tour with Brit, Floyd?
Hi, Joel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. So we are about to do another 44 dates. We actually did 51 so far this year. It's going to be a total of close to 140. What an intro. Thank you so much for that introduction. Sometimes, time just flies and I almost forget everything that I've accomplished and I'm just so grateful. I'm so lucky. Sometimes let's back up a little. I'm actually on a short tour break right now, and I'm at my mom's in Elmer, close to Ottawa. And where I'm staying in the guest room, there's my plaques, which you just mentioned, the platinum and the gold record. So every time I come to my mom's, I see those plaques, and it's almost like it's a reminder every time of like holy crap, like that happened. I have this amazing recording career, and I'll definitely return to recording at some point, recording my own material. But yes, for a few years now, I've been a part of Brit Floyd, and we're about to embark upon our summer tour in the US after doing 51 dates already. It's exciting. It's a huge year. God knows all of us, returning to doing what we love after a year and a half of hiatus through no choice of ours, right? It's great. It's great to be back. I'm so excited. I always get recharged when I come back to my hometown.
Have you found that the 2 years or so during the pandemic where things were on lockdown, there were no concerts, did that period of time really make you appreciate the shows you've done since then and the upcoming shows?
100%. Yes. I was incredibly blessed during the pandemic. I consider myself like one of the lucky ones because I was able to still do some acting because, I've been doing some acting gigs for a while now. So I was able to get a few roles on a few TV shows. I shot a movie. And I also have an online business with a health and wellness brand that I'm really, really passionate about. So I was able to keep busy during the pandemic and I was able to still make a living. So I'm just so grateful because I know not a lot of people had that chance. But definitely returning to touring and, live music, concerts, people in close proximity, enjoying a concert experience like that. I miss that so much, like on stage and as a concert goer. Like I love seeing shows, even though obviously I don't get the chance to see many, many shows. But yeah, definitely appreciate it more. Definitely don't take anything for granted. I think that goes for everything in life.
Yeah, it's hard for you to get out and see concerts when you're performing almost every night, right? So
it is.
You have to go see acoustic performances at cafes during the day or something. I mean, those are the only ones you can make, I guess.
Pretty much. Every now and then we luck out. Funny anecdote. Last year, we happened to have a day off in Austin, Texas during our tour with Brit Floyd. And I got to see one of my all-time favorite, deep ingrained in my heart boy bands. I'm sure you can guess which ones. And I was so excited because on my day off, I was able to score tickets because we're both with Live Nation and I got some tickets for, yes, you guessed it, the Backstreet Boys. And it was one of the best concerts I ever saw in my life because just the emotions, right? Because when you go to a concert, it's an experience. People remember what they felt. They might not remember every song they played or what they were wearing or whatnot, but they remember the emotion and how they felt. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So sometimes we do luck out and the schedules will align and there you go. I was lucky.
Man, out of all the cities in the world that you could have a day off in, I mean, Austin is one of the music capitals, so
It
that's
was
pretty
so
cool.
cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, very vibrant. And we don't get the chance to stay very long in each city that we visit. But when we have the chance, when we're feeling up to it, because sometimes on the day off, it's such a grueling tour. Sometimes I just want to veg out on the day off, stay in the hotel and just watch Netflix. But when we're in a cool place like that, like it's hard not to want to go out and explore and discover.
So you're a couple of years younger than me, so you must have been at the tail end of the Backstreet Boys phenomenon, no? Because they were
Perhaps.
they were they were big when I was, I was young, and yeah, so I don't know.
I mean, they were my first CD ever. When I was 9 years old, I just, vivid memory of sitting under the Christmas tree, unwrapping my CD, and it was the first album, just self-titled Backstreet Boys, and it was the first CD I ever owned. It was the first CD I ever played in my little, handheld ghetto blaster CD player, and I got every single album of theirs. So it might be on the tail end. I don't know, but I mean,
Then again, they were big for a long time,
they got
so
bigger in
yeah.
Canada before in the US. They got big in Europe and in Canada before they made it to the
I
US.
heard it was Quebec actually that was the first to embrace them.
Correct. Correct. 100%. Yeah.
That was you for Christmas getting their CD was the start of
Exactly.
the phenomenon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I adore them still to this day.
That's awesome. So we're going to do a deep dive of your life, your career, your discography, and we got to go all the way back to the start. So where did this love of music come from? Is there an earliest musical memory? I saw some pictures, I'm doing research. I've seen pictures of you with your dad, like you were like a baby, and it seems like your dad was very musical. Is that the start?
Yes, 100%. So my dad is a self-taught musician. He plays, a few instruments. He sings. He came to Canada, so he's Peruvian. He came to Canada from Peru. He was about 19 years old, and in his early years, he was a busking musician. So he was, if anybody's familiar with the Ottawa region, there's the Byward Market, which is downtown Ottawa, like steps from the Parliament, and that's like a super very lively, vibrant place, especially in the summertime. So he was just a busker. He would play his guitar, and eventually it became a whole setup thing. He would plug in. He had his amps, his speakers, keyboards. It was like he was basically a one-man band. And he used to spend his entire summers there outside singing publicly outdoors, and it became a whole phenomenon. It became like he would attract crowds of people. People would dance. There'd be like this dance floor and like clogging up the whole traffic of people. Even the police got involved because I don't remember if it was technically legal at that time, but like it was, people were complaining about the amount of people that were there. But anyways, some young people even like signed petitions to like keep him around. I swear one day there's gonna be like a movie about that story. And then he met my mom, and then he had to go back to Peru, and then they were apart, and then they had me. It's a beautiful story. But yes, that was the first time I ever performed in public. Was with my dad on the streets of Ottawa. I was 3 years old maybe, and I was singing this Portuguese song, La Lambada, and I obviously didn't know what I was saying, and just making up words, and that was the first time I performed in public. So yeah, definitely dad brought the music into my veins at a very young age.
I was actually in the Byward Market last night. There was karaoke, but with a live band. So they have a list of all the
Right.
songs they can play. So it's karaoke, but you actually feel like you're fronting a legit rock band. And
That's so cool.
there were the buskers just out front. So that's still a tradition that's going now. So your dad was like a pioneer back then. Do you feel like you were his secret weapon to get more tips? Because there's a musician, but then there's this cute little girl singing as well. It's like when you go to the park with like a cute dog and everyone comes and talks to you, it's like
Oh
a
yeah.
starter.
Yeah, yeah. The little yeah, I mean, I don't remember how many times I went to perform with him. I definitely know that I went to see him quite a few times, but um yeah, I don't remember if I went more than once. I know that there's this one time. It's on YouTube. I mean, you can research it and find it, but there is definitely documentation of my first performance. Um Probably, I mean, he probably just loved having me there and just like, he's so proud of me. I mean, both my parents are my biggest fans, even to this day, and they're, so supportive. Um, but yeah, it was so much fun. And I remember I had these big like balloons attached to my back, like wings. And, my family was there, my aunt, my mom, my grandparents, people were dancing, and it's a great memory, definitely.
So in Ottawa, when I was growing up, we had homegrown cafes. So this was a talent show on CJOH. People know you, you rose to fame with winning Canadian Idol, but you winning competitions goes way back. So you were actually on Homegrown Cafe. Can you share that story, how you ended up on it and what was the response from your performance?
That was I think that was my first television appearance. I was 9. I have like a vague memory of auditioning, and I feel like I auditioned with like Shania Twain's That Don't Impress Me Much, if that
Good
makes
song,
sense.
good song.
Oh no, that was probably later. Um that sometimes it gets intertwined. Anyways, I remember auditioning. I remember meeting JJ Clark. I remember meeting the board of execs, the TV producers. I remember being very, very nervous, of course. And I performed the Phantom of the Opera. I remember there was 3 rounds, right? So there was the first round, the semifinals, and then the finals. And my dad would like pick my costumes with me, and he would do my makeup and my hair, and my mom was there, for emotional support, and um, it was a lot of fun. So, and yeah, that was the first competition that I ever won on live TV, no less. So it was great. I remember feeling very nervous, but also I remember the thrill, of people clapping and the thrill of being announced the winner, and just yeah, definitely gave me a bug. You could say that.
So you're currently in the Ottawa Gatineau area, just for a little bit. I don't know how long you're here, but Shania is playing tomorrow night at Blues Fest in Ottawa. So I have the full passes. I'm there every day for 2 weeks. She's legit. Tomorrow night is Lindsay L is opening, and Shania is tomorrow. So I don't know if you're still here tomorrow,
I am here tomorrow. My
but
goodness
you could
gracious.
see Shania Twain. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. I'm leaving in next week, actually, going back to the tour. We're starting in LA, but okay, thank you for telling me that. My goodness.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're here for a few days, you got to check out the Blues Fest lineup because there's Foo Fighters with their new drummer. There's Death Cab for Cutie. It's like a crazy lineup. There's Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin. Like it's a massive, massive thing
Rock
happening.
legend. That's amazing. Oh my God. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Who would you say were your biggest influences uh, as far as singers? So you're 3, you're singing in public. You're 9, you're winning competitions. Who were the singers that you looked up to that you said, "Wow, that is what's truly possible if I work at my craft"?
So, no surprise, when I was quite young, I jumped into, the deep end right away, started singing like Céline Dion. Uh, and I remember at a very early age, my first experience like flexing my singing muscles were a lot of musical theater. So my father was a huge fan of like Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera. Um, so my first go-to songs were like On My Own, I Dreamed a Dream, Phantom of the Opera, and being a small little girl, my register was I could go incredibly high range-wise. So, but yeah, so pop singers and singers that I looked up to, definitely Céline Dion. I would go for the big songs with the big notes. Just I wanted to, do it all. I wanted to be right up there with her. I remember spending hours and hours in the shower, in my bedroom, obviously with the. Actually, most people think that we sing with a hairbrush in front of the mirror. I didn't have a hairbrush. I had a flashlight that was shaped exactly like a microphone. It was like silver, and I had like a red cap on it. And it was a perfect, very realistic. It did
Oh,
feel
you
like a
fancy.
microphone. It was very fancy, and so I would use that to practice. But then as I became a bit older, like when I was a teenager, my absolute idol was Nelly Furtado, as a fellow Canadian, Portuguese. Um, I love her. She's incredibly, um, she's she really represented what I was aspiring to be as an artist eventually. But we might ask me that question in a few, but I ended up meeting her on Canadian Idol, and it was like definitely a dream come true. I did love, of course, Whitney Houston, because even to this day, I think she's one of the most beautiful voices in music history. Alicia Keys. But yeah, I think Celine Dion was just my, in my heart, she's my number one.
Yeah, Nelly Furtado was just so unique. You couldn't, she took influences from everywhere and made it her own. And you knew it was Nelly Furtado when you heard Nelly Furtado right away, which is hard to do with, there's so many artists in human history. It's hard to carve out that unique sound that's just yours. And she somehow did that.
Yeah, she definitely did. She was definitely unique. Like she had this cool, hip, refreshing, exotic sound. When she came out with "I'm Like a Bird," and I remember seeing her music video on Much Music, or maybe it was Music Plus. But I remember saying like, okay, she's different, because it was the era of Christina Aguilera and Britney, which of course I adored as well. But when Nelly came along, it was this like fresh new sound, and she was different. She didn't, take herself too seriously. She was like in jeans and a tank top. I went through a kind of like a tomboyish phase when I was younger too, so I really identified to her. She was just cool. She still is, and I hear she's making a comeback, and I'm very excited about that. I can't wait to hear what she comes up with.
I've started to see clips of her performing live. So I think she's like starting to do the live shows again, and people are like, man, she looks great, she sounds great. So the comeback is imminent. You mentioned that Whitney Houston was one of your favorite singers. So I have two young nieces, so they're 7 and 9, and
Oh,
their favorite artists are Whitney Houston and Tina Turner. And
wow.
so they'll ask me about the podcast and the people I've interviewed, and they recently asked me, have you interviewed Whitney Houston or Tina Turner? And I don't have the heart to tell them that they've passed away, so I can't
Oh.
interview them. So anyways, that's just a random point that
No, two huge, amazing icons, and I can't believe we've lost so many legends in the past few years. It's insane. It's incredible.
yeah, I have a fan question sent in that has to do with where you are right now. So this is from Mike Nolan. So he says, great voice. Did she ever perform at the Elmer Legion?
I have not, and I don't think I know what that is. I feel bad. What is it?
I don't know. I guess so. You're in Elmer right now. Is that
I
correct?
am. My mom lives in Elmer, and it's funny because it's a bit of a full circle thing, because my parents' very first house that they ever owned when I was first born was actually here in Elmer, and it was actually like a few streets away from where she is now. So um, yeah, she's currently in a beautiful condo complex, and streets from where I first lived, my very first address when I was, a newborn. And then we moved to Hull, which for people who don't know the area, it's just like a different district. But now they fusioned all the districts, and now it's just called Gatineau. So it's one huge big city, Gatineau, Ottawa. When people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, oh, the Ottawa Gatineau area. Most people know where that is.
There you go. So I don't know why Mike is asking about the Elmer Legion. Maybe it's just like, I don't know, if you're from Elmer, maybe it's this like legendary place.
Ask my mom
you,
if she has
you'll
my.
have to check it out. That's how you know you've made it, is if someday you play the Elmer Legion, then you can knock that off the bucket list. So if I met you at 12 years old, who would I be meeting? What were you like at 12?
Oh my God. I think you'd be meeting a very awkward, somewhat shy, a bit insecure, but very bubbly and outgoing and full of life. But it's funny because if you had asked me like 10, 11, or 12, 13, I mean, everyone knows, that's part of growing up, but there's a huge gap between those ages. And I was actually speaking to a friend of mine on a podcast a few days ago about like the awkwardness of coming into the teenage years from childhood. Because when you're a child, you're very carefree. Like that's why I was able to go on Homegrown Cafe and perform, in front of people with my dad. Like you're so careless as a child. They're like, you don't care what people think of you. You have no ego. You haven't met your ego yet. You are, just there to have fun and express yourself without any any care in the world what the eyes of other people on you. But coming into teenage years, then that starts to shift. You start caring what your friends think about you. You start caring about what you look. You start comparing yourself to people around you. So 12 years old for me, I was right on that edge of like being that carefree child, everything happy go lucky, and entering high school, like, okay, this is a whole new game. You know, physically, I was very like, I was super skinny. I had short hair. I was still wearing glasses. I didn't start, I hadn't started wearing makeup yet. So I was a little bit awkward. I was a bit of a tomboy, and I went through a phase where I had like purple streaks in my hair. But then I, came out of my shell, and I started performing at my school. So then started feeling more confident, and that was definitely my my how do you call it? Well, I know the word in French, un atout. It was the thing that was my biggest pride. It gave me a lot of confidence because people started to see like, hey, you sing really well. Like you're gonna be a singer one day. You should. Anyways, so yeah, 12 years old, bubbly, outgoing, awkward, tomboy, bad hair, glasses, but full of joy in life nonetheless.
I remember the awkwardness of being 12. I remember going to a dance, and I remember in advance asking my mom to teach me how to dance. Like, so I remember the two of us like in front of a mirror, and she's showing me like these old school dance moves. And anyways,
That's so
it was a train wreck, but she
You
did
wanted
her
to be
best.
prepared. You had to be,
Yeah.
I applaud you.
Yeah, so that's the proof that at 12 you know if I had the ego, I would have been too proud to ask my mom to teach me. So at 12 it was just like, okay, give me what we need here. So if we fast forward a few more years, let's say you're 16 years old and we're friends and you invite me over to the Quebec side and you're going to play some music for me. What albums would you be playing me at 16 years old?
16 years old. Even to this day, I think my musical taste is so varied and so unpredictable, depending on my mood, depending on what kind of phase I'm going through. Um, 16 years old, definitely, again, a lot of Nelly Furtado. I loved her first album, Whoa Nelly, really loved her second one, Folklore,
Folklore?
which later I read that it didn't do so well, but I remember absolutely loving that album. Um,
Yeah, so the first album sold like 4 million copies and then Folklore sold like a million. So it's still like it's for anyone else that's a huge success,
I
but
mean, hello. Yeah, I know. It's just, of course, it's always tough to come out with a sophomore album because, you have the first one to compare to. Just like coming out with a follow-up single is hard. It's a tough industry. It's really, really, really tough. But yeah, a lot of Nelly. I did, and I still do. I'm a huge fan of hip hop. So, but back then, I mean, I was a teenager, so it was the era of downloading music and burning CDs. So, and I didn't have internet until later, like 17, 18 years old. So I would ask my one of my best friends to like I wrote to him all my favorite songs that I couldn't like I would just sit, in my mom's car or like in my room and I would listen to like Kiss FM, for example, and I would just wait for my favorite tunes to come on, and I would hit record, and I would write down my list of favorite songs. From the moment, I would tell my friend, "Please burn me a CD with these songs," and so a big mix of stuff, a lot of pop, a lot of. I did start getting into rock. I think that younger though. You asked 16. I got into Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication, when I was like maybe 14, 15. So Blink 182, again, Michael Jackson, just a huge,
well, that's what makes you a great
variety.
artist is having a love for all genres of music. So I always say a great song is a great song regardless of genre because if you took a great song and you stripped it down acoustic, you could then pass that song off to Taylor Swift to cover it and it would be great. And you could pass it off to Metallica to cover it and it would be great. So as a music producer, as a musician, it's important to actually embrace all genres of music. And that's probably helped you along with your career in music.
Definitely. That's why you can hear like different versions that you would never expect, like if you hear a song that's originally rock and you hear it reggae or you hear a pop tune that's done like, you know, um, punk or rock or heavy metal. Just recently, when we were in, I think it was actually Austin, we were playing at Austin City Limits, and they were, during the day, they were playing the reggae version of Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
I've
So
never
it
heard
was
that.
like, it's really special. It's interesting, but that's proof of, a great song is a great song. You can strip it down, you can make it into any genre, and it'll still be a masterpiece. That's the power of good music.
So we've been talking about you growing up, your childhood, you as a teenager, you performing in the Gatineau music scene. So I have some kind words sent in from someone that knew
Aw.
you back in those days. And this is a very successful singer-songwriter, a part of the multi-platinum band, the Sheepdog. So Ricky Paquette sent in some kind words for you. And
Oh,
this
bless
and this is what Ricky has to say. He says, Eva, hold on, let me make sure I got it right here. So he says, Eva, I have great memories playing local shows around Gatineau, Ottawa, when we were in our teens. Her family and mine got along great. We had some great times together doing music. It's no surprise to me that she's doing so well singing her heart out, as her raw talent was evident to everyone who heard her sing. I think the world needs more kind hearted people like Eva. Good vibes are contagious. I hope I get to see her sometime soon and catch up with my old friend. I also remember how proud we were when her career swiftly took off when she won Canadian Idol. So that's from Ricky.
Bless him. Merci, Ricky. Oh my God, that makes me emotional. That's so, so sweet. Oh, bless him. That is so, so sweet. Ricky is a phenomenon. I know you already know this, but he's a legend. I remember he was so tiny, tiny, and everybody saw him play guitar, and we were like, okay, that kid is going places. Yeah. And his parents, again, sweethearts, total sweethearts. Very, very down to earth, humble, nice, passionate people. Yeah, we would, our paths would cross very, very often. Again, I love seeing how well he's doing too. Like, we follow each other on all the platforms, and I'm just so proud of him. Yay!
So we got to about 16 asking what kind of music you were listening to. When we get up to 19, this is already the Canadian Idol days. So were you 19 when you auditioned for Canadian Idol, and where did the idea come from that you would actually audition for it?
So, not a lot of people know this, but I actually auditioned for the very first season when they came to Ottawa. I was 16, so that would have been in 2001, I guess. Season one was 2001.
So this is the Ryan Malcolm season.
Correct. Correct. So I auditioned then, and I got really, really nervous when I made it through the first rounds, the first two rounds with the producers. I made it to the celebrity judges. But when I got there, I got really, really nervous. And I think I made a little boo-boo vocally, like I sang a chorus. I sang Wind Beneath My Wings by Bette Midler. So I sang the chorus, and then getting back into the verse after that, I did a whole key change. Like, I don't know why in my head, because we sang a cappella without any music. I got so nervous that I lost my key. So I just, you know, and Zach was like, "Oh yeah, I think you have a bit of a pitch, maybe issue." And I was like, "No, I don't. I'm just really nervous." So that was kind of funny. But I walked out. I was a bit defeated. My little ego was a little bruised. But I still did it, and I was very proud of myself. And they did tell me, come back in a few years. You definitely have some raw talent to explore. So I don't know what kind of, how I processed that, but of course I kept singing and I kept doing my thing. But every year following that, I didn't want to go back. And I didn't want to admit it back then, but I'll admit it today that it was probably because my ego was just bruised. I was afraid of rejection. I wanted to protect myself from rejection. That's obviously what that was, even though I didn't know at the time. At the time, I was going to like CJEP part time. I was trying to save up money. I was working at a post office in my local mall because I wanted to go study like musical theater in Montreal at this musical theater school. So everybody around me was like, "You should go back. You should go back," especially my mom and dad and my family. They're like, "You have nothing to lose. You could be spotted. You could be scouted by a talent agent. You could just make connections, whatever." And I really didn't want to go. I told everybody to just leave me alone. Like, no, 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 I'm gonna take the traditional route to to make it in the industry. But on the morning of the auditions, I think it was a Sunday, and I was at my mom's, and I just woke up that day, and I was like, it was the second day of the auditions, and I knew they were going to hold auditions all day. And I remember just telling my mom, like, you know what? Okay, like, I'll go. Just the day of, like, I hadn't prepared nothing, but I had a million songs that I could just sing spontaneously on the spot. So just got out of bed, and my mom and dad were so excited. They were so excited that I actually had my mom and my aunt go to the Rito Center and wait in line for me because, I could take my time, I could, shower and get ready. So they held my spot in line, and my dad drove me, and I think I waited like an hour, maybe 2 hours at most. Like, I was already a diva back then. Like, they were just holding the hard part for me. Most of the hard part is the waiting, like for hours and hours and hours. And I heard of people camping out on the street to get like seen in front of the judges, and it's crazy. So yeah, so I just went through. I went through it with a very nonchalant attitude. Like, okay, I'll do it. You're right. I have nothing to lose, but like I was really playing it cool. I was protecting myself from rejection. I was like, no expectations. You know, did not expect to get through. Did not expect to make it really far. But then every step as I got through it, like, oh, you made it to the top 200. Okay. Oh, you made it to the top 22. Okay. And then week to week, I was just like, whoa, it was very surreal when I think back on it.
So you skipped season 2 and 3, and it was season 4 that you went and auditioned?
Correct.
Okay. And at what point, so you said you had no expectations. At what point did you realize I might win this whole thing?
Realistically, I think it was probably around the top, somewhere between like top 10 and like top three. I thought I could have a shot. Because when I made it to top 10, I was like, holy crap, I'm in top 10. Like, this is, it's live TV. It's huge. People are starting to, recognize you. And I felt like this is big. This is really big. But at some point, people started leaving the competition and be like, well, she's amazing. How could she leave? Oh, he's awesome. I was sure he was going to make it to the final. And you get stuck in that bubble where like, you share this experience that is so unique and so that you can't prepare for. Um, yeah, I think somewhere between top 10 and top three. I can't pinpoint the exact moment.
Yeah. And at that time, it was the number one TV show in Canada, period. So there was 2 million people tuning into every single episode, which is, I mean, you can't pay for that kind of free promotion as a musician. So whether you won or not, it would really get your name out there for future gigs and opportunities. It, I guess for those that aren't familiar with the inside of the competition, so we just see these musicians singing and some move on and some win and whatever, but it's not all fun and games. It is grueling, long hours. You don't get that much sleep every night. You don't necessarily get to choose the songs you want to sing during the competition. Like, it's from a predetermined list. Is there anything you can share with our listeners about more of the boot camp aspect of before you make it to the final, like top 22, where it slows down a bit? Can you talk about maybe, making it through to say the top 200, top 50, how grueling that is?
Okay, I remember that week vividly, like vividly. So when you make it to the top 200, there's this period of time where you're not allowed to talk about it. Like, you're not allowed to divulge that you've been selected. So I would go to work at the post office and I would say like, oh, they're going to call us. Like, they're going to let us know later. I'm waiting. I don't think I made it. You're not allowed to say like, yeah, I made it. I have a golden ticket and I'm going to Toronto on the week of, May 20 something. So there's this whole period of time where you're not allowed to talk about it. It's really, really tough. And the week in Toronto, it was actually Mississauga. It was the Square One, I think. performing
the mall square
performance
one.
center.
Oh,
The,
the Living Arts Center.
yeah,
Living
the
Arts
one
Center.
across from Square One.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So that's where we were, and then we were at a hotel nearby. Um, it was 4 days, if my memory serves me right. So I say a week, but yeah, 4 days. And you said it. You don't get a lot of sleep. It did feel like a boot camp. You get there and you've got excitement, anticipation, apprehension, nerves. You meet all sorts of people. Some you click with right away. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you clash. So the first day is a whole day of you wait. You know that expression, hurry up and wait. Hurry up, get ready, like 6 a.m. And then you're everybody convenes in like a big convention center, and there's hundreds of people. I mean, top 200 people. And then you have to wait till the end of the day. They brought you in groups of 10, I think, to get on stage in front of the judges, and then you get to sing like a snippet, a cappella, no music. You get to sing a snippet of something that you choose. And then at the very end, oh dear Lord, I am on Do Not Disturb. There's no reason this should sound. I'm
That
so
is all
sorry.
good. That is all good. No worries.
Anyway, it is on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why.
Someone is disturbing.
Yes, I don't get it. Um, anyways, so yeah, it's really grueling. And then the second day they pair you with somebody, like they give you 5 minutes to find a partner around you. And then you have a pianist that accompanies you. So and they do like a pre-selection of songs, and then you have to choose something that, you have to learn that night. You have to like cut into your night, your hours of sleep to like rehearse with somebody that you just met. And then the third day is groups. So it's groups of 3 or 4. Then you have to like become a musical director all of a sudden and be like, okay, you do the verse, I'll do the chorus. Which harmonies? Are you a soprano? Are you an alto? Which part do you want to do? Oh, I know this part well. And everybody wants to showcase themselves. So there's a lot of egos that come together. And anyways, it was crazy. So on the fourth day, you're back to doing something solo. So you can choose from a list and you do it a cappella. And then at the very, very end, they lock you in like different rooms, and then you have to wait because the judges come in to let you know that the whole group is going through or the whole group is going home. It is like it's a roller coaster. And you know, when you're high on adrenaline like that, you can make it through a week like that with barely any sleep because you're focused, you're you've got your eye on the prize, you're just nerves or what are keeping you awake. And I just, again, when I auditioned, I had this really no expectation, nonchalant kind of approach. But going through that week, I was like, okay, now that I'm here, like I'm not gonna do this half-ass, I'm gonna go all the way. I'm gonna give it everything I got, which is, I'm still like that. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I'm very just, no half measures. Um, and yeah, at the very end of the week, they came in and they said, "You're all going through." So two groups of 11, top 22, and they're like, "Okay, you're coming back, next month, and we're gonna start filming, and you're gonna be on TV, and this is it. Like you guys are in." So in 4 days, your fate is decided. It was insane. It was indescribable. Like what a feeling. And I was 19. Like technically, yeah, I was an adult, but I was a baby. I was a child. I was, you've got your whole life in front of you. I was just like, let's do this. This is the experience of a lifetime. And I still to this day, it's definitely looking back, it's the experience of a lifetime for sure.
And was that amount of success overwhelming at 19, or did you feel like you were ready for it?
Um, it didn't feel overwhelming at the time. It felt surreal in a good way. It felt like a dream come true. It felt like I don't like without sounding pretentious, it sounded like deserved. It sounded like it felt, sorry, not sounded. It felt like this I'm like this is what's supposed to happen. Like this is why I started singing as a toddler when I was 2, 3 years old. This is why um, I spent so many hours, working on my craft, taking, singing lessons, doing musical theater. going from audition to audition. Um, I was working with an agent at a very young age. I was starting to open for like big Quebecois artists at like summer festivals and stuff, and I felt like this is what I want to do. Like this is what I want to do with my life. So I felt like it's finally here. It's a dream come true. I felt like I wanted to hang on to it really, really, really tight. But at the same time, I kind of wanted to prepare myself for, and there's no way to prepare yourself for that either, but I knew it wasn't going to last forever. Like, I know that you can rise to fame really quick, but you can come down just as quickly. But, you know, you know how it is. You're 19, you think you're on top of the world, you think you're invincible, you think you're very mature and reasonable, but you haven't lived life yet, you know? So, after a few years when I started to be hit with the realities of the industry, of the aftermath of winning a competition like this, because it was like a slingshot, really, really high, really, really fast. It was a whirlwind for a couple of years. I was just like, my schedule was completely booked 24/7. But I enjoyed the ride. I would do it again. I wouldn't change a thing. I absolutely no regrets, even though it was a lot. I hope that
To
answers your question.
to show how improbable your win is, there was about 10 to 15,000 people that auditioned every season. So when you think about it, if we just lined you up with say 10 to 15,000 people and it was like, okay, here's the competition, start. And it's like people start singing. You would think it'd be virtually impossible to win that competition. There's just so many that even if you're great, it's like out of 15,000 people, there's got to be someone else that picks a better song or is on a better day where their vocals sound better. So just when I think of it that way, think 10, 15,000 people, it's like you're in like a sports arena and the arena's full. There's that many people across Canada. And then at the end of it, there's just you and you won. So I just wanted to kind of paint that picture. And I think it's, when you think about it at the start, it seems like, oh, this is impossible to win. But all you had to do, I'm making it sound like it's easy, but it was just one audition at a time. You were there in Ottawa and you did your song and you moved on. And then, and it was just one opportunity at a time, one song at a time. You were as ready as you could be. You chose the right song, good performance. And I guess that's how I look at it. It's like just through consistency and good song choices and personality and these things, you ended up you did the damn thing. You went all the way through and won
It
it.
is
So
crazy when you think about it. And that's how I felt too. Like, I think my year, it was like 13, I think 13,000 was the magic number, but yeah, 13,000 something people auditioned. And I remember looking around just seeing like, and of course, again, I was really, really young and I was comparing everybody to me like, oh, you know, she has an amazing voice and she, looks a certain way and oh, this guy looks like a rock star. He's going to go all the way for sure. Like, you compare. And that's the nature of, being a human being. Like we tend to compare ourselves a lot. And in an industry like performing and music, it's a very, very competitive, industry. So it is crazy to think about. And I felt like there's no way. There's no way. Like I'm just like I knew I was talented. I had confidence in my voice and in my I was used to performing, so I knew I could do a good job, but
there's lots of talented people.
exactly. Like what made me so special? What made me different? Like and I guess, my stars were aligned that anyways, it is mind blowing to think about. So thank you for bringing me back to that time because it makes me appreciate it even more.
And so there were only 6 seasons of Canadian Idol. So there are only 5 other people that truly understand what you've gone through. And I have kind words from 2 of them. So I have 2 Canadian Idol winners that sent in some kind words. So you won season 4 and
Yeah.
you inspired the following 2 to go on and win seasons 5 and 6. So I have kind words from Brian Mello and Theo Tam. So Brian says, Eva, what an amazing human being, a class act, and one of the kindest people I've met in the music industry. Not to mention that voice, superstar on and off the stage. So that's Brian Mello, who just became a dad in the last few days. So congrats to Brian. And then Theo Tam says, Eva is the epitome of grace. She is one of the wisest and most talented people I know. I'm so thankful for our friendship. She has been an anchor for me in my own sobriety journey, and I couldn't be more proud to call her a friend. So that's from Theo Tam.
Oh my God. Bless both of them. That is so amazing. You're so sweet to transfer these messages to me. I'm blushing. That's amazing. That's so great. Thank you so much.
There you go. You're very welcome. So I want to now dive into the aftermath of winning Canadian Idol. So you've released 3 albums since then. So let's start with the first album. So Somewhere Else in 2006. So when you think back to that album, what thoughts, memories, emotions come to you? This album kickstarted the crazy adventure you've been on since then.
Correct. So the first album was, again, a whirlwind because I was coming off of the winning the show. I signed a deal immediately with Sony BMG, and they right away we had to put out the record because I mean it makes sense. You have to ride the momentum, you have to ride the wave. It had to be out before Christmas. So I won late September, and the album was out like in November, basically. So it was crazy. Obviously, there was the winning single, Meant to Fly. Amazing song. That was already recorded before the rest of the album. So I worked with a really amazing, talented producer who to this day is still a good friend of mine, Rob Wells. Fantastic.
He's worked with some of the biggest names in the music industry, period, right?
He's a legend. He's a complete legend. He's and a wonderful human being. We've got to know each other really, really well over the years, and he's actually a dear friend of mine. So on a personal level, sometimes you connect with somebody creatively, musically, you write great songs, but that chemistry doesn't necessarily mean you guys become actual real friends. Rob is one of the most amazing human beings that I had the pleasure of meeting in my career. So what was not so great about that album is that it had to be done so fast, like so rushed. But what was really great was I did have a little bit of space creatively to have my say. The label executives did like a pre-selection of songs. I mean, obviously people were sending songs from all over the place, all over the world, some of the greatest songwriters. I remember I went to one of the songwriting camps. People were actually writing songs, for me, for the winner. And I got to meet some of them just so they could get a sense of who I was, who they're writing for. So yeah, it was really, really great. So I was able to take part in the song selection process, which was awesome because even if I wanted to, start writing my own music, there was no time. And I probably didn't have the headspace and the mental energy to sit down and start writing music. That came a little bit after for the second album. But yeah, it was great. I was recording with Rob and his engineer, Chris. And we recorded in his home studio in Mississauga, amazing studio. We had a lot of fun, lots of laughing, lots of taking breaks and watching funny videos just to get, because when you're in the studio all day working, I needed to take a break for my voice or whatever. We just needed to, think about something else, something completely unrelated to the record. So a lot of laughter, a lot of great times. And I think there's some really, really amazing songs on that record. Even to this day, if I listen to Meant to Fly or I Owe It All to You or Fallen for You, which were like the 3 biggest singles, I still think, those are some great tunes. I'm so fortunate to have had the chance to record them and put my voice on them, and very proud to have people hearing them and being like, wow, this is what Eva Avila sounds like. Like, it sounds great. It's catchy. Good pop music,
So that album comes out. It has three hit singles, the three that you just named. The album goes gold. The first single, Meant to Fly, it debuts at number one. It stays there for 9 weeks. It goes double platinum. You get nominated for a Juno. I mean, what more could someone ask for on their debut album?
100%. Yeah, and I probably didn't grasp it at the time, because like I mentioned, it was just such a whirlwind, and there was too much to think about, too much to appreciate, too much to process, in a wonderful way. And I was just able to process it like just later on, and I'll have that for the rest of my life. I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed. Just like I said, when I look at those plaques at my mom's, I'm like reminded of just how privileged I was to be able to have that platform. And yeah, definitely it's a gift.
So Meant to Fly was co-written by Chantal Kreviazuk and Rain Maid of Our Lady Peace. Were you able to spend some time with them, or was it something where the song was already done and they provided it, so you didn't all have to get together to work on it?
I believe that so Chantal was one of our guest mentors on the Unplugged Acoustic Week, which was the theme for that week. I think that was top six, which I think was a determining point, a pivoting point for me in the competition, because that's when I did Alicia Keys' How Come You Don't Call Me. And I think that, you know, that was able to showcase like stylistically a color of my voice that I hadn't done yet, which was, the R&B soul kind of vibe. And that's when I discovered like, oh, that's a good style for me. Like that's where I can shine. Anyway, so very big moment that week. So she was our guest mentor. And when I went in to practice my song, she had nothing but kind words for me. She was super sweet. She was, wonderful, wonderful mentor. And she said that when she, went back and wrote that song with her husband, she had me in mind. They had me in mind, knowing what I sound like, knowing, because when you meet somebody so quickly, you can get a vibe, you can get a sense of, the energy and what they emote, and their whole energy and vibe and aura. But so she kind of hung to that. Plus, she watched me perform week after week, so she knew vocally and stylistically what I could do. And when they wrote that song, they said that they wrote it with me in mind, because they kind of knew that I could kill it, which was very flattering to hear.
So when I listened to I listened to your entire discography a few times. So when I listened to the debut album, my thoughts were, this is a very mature sounding album for a 19-year-old. And I thought that the influences I could hear were Alicia Keys, Nora Jones, and Corinne Bailey Rae. Would you say those are semi-accurate as far as influences? You just mentioned that Alicia Keys was one of them.
100%. Yeah, I'm very, very flattered. Um, when I listen back to those first records, I'm always a little bit shocked at how young I sound, because which is weird, because you wouldn't think that your voice ages that much between young adult to, like, I'm in my mid 30s. I'm not 60 yet, So like, but when I listen to myself, I'm like, wow, I sounded so young. Definitely know that I have this natural inclination to sing in a very R&B soul manner. Like that's where my voice feels really good. That's where I know it sits well, fits with my range, and it's what I love. I just love, stylistically, I love that. So yeah, that's very flattering. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So my favorite deep cut from the album is I Don't Want to Cry.
Nice.
That's for me. So the notes I have, such a great vibe with the piano riff, the bass that kicks in halfway through the verse, the catchy chorus, and then you hit the money note going into the final chorus. I think you go up high there. So those are my notes. That's my
Thank
favorite song
you.
on the album. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I did love that song. Yeah, it's a really, really great song. And another thing that I loved is I had the liberty of kind of adding my own color to the tunes. Like, of course, a song is written, there's a melody, but I had so much, if I needed to like sing something differently or maybe tweak the melody because, it felt more comfortable, felt more organic, and felt more natural, the team was so open, and they were like, do your thing. You're an artist. Like, just, interpret it how it feels, organically. And even to this day, what I do with Brit Floyd, like, yes, we play Pink Floyd music, but it's my voice. Like, anatomically, I can't change my vocal cords. So whatever I interpret, it ends up being my own. It's filtered by my own perception artistically, if that makes any sense.
So you released your second album, Give Me the Music, in 2008, and then you released an EP, Never Get Enough, in 2015. Were you feeling massive pressure recording the follow-up album to the first one? So when you're in there writing and recording, were you feeling like, man, the first one was such a hit, we already went through all the accolades? Was there pressure, extra pressure?
Definitely did feel the pressure. I was also at the point, it was the era of transition between people purchasing CDs and, the arrival of the iPod, the MP3 players, the
Napster,
streaming.
yeah.
So that probably did not play in my favor in terms of sales. But I mean, again, like I said earlier, like I knew that I couldn't be the it girl forever. There's a new season of Canadian Idol. There's other artists coming out with records. I knew that the second album was probably not going to do as well. When you come off of a big TV show like that, like, of course, it was like there was this huge momentum. So I knew it was going to be really, really hard to recreate, no matter how good the songs were. I recorded in LA with an amazing producer, Matt Wallace. He worked with Maroon 5. He was just so, so good. We recorded with the live band, live instruments. I had a couple of co-writes on that record as well. It was a little bit more like mature, rocky kind of, sound wise. But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that record, but I still think it's a great album. I wouldn't change it, because artistically, that's where I was at in my career.
Yeah, I have pages of notes for those two albums. We only have like 5 minutes left. So I am ready to deep dive into those two albums. I have questions about music videos, and I have my favorite songs.
We can go another 15-20 if you're good.
Oh man, I am hashtag blessed. That's amazing. So I guess so. My two favorite songs from Give Me the Music are Damned and Say Goodbye. So Damned is such like an intense song.
I love it.
Uh, and there's powerful vocals. Do you have to do anything specific leading into that song if you're playing live to get into the mindset to bring on kind of the darkness and the intensity, and knowing you're going to have to hit some higher powerful notes? Is there anything that you have to do specifically, or it's just you sing that way and it's all pretty simple?
I mean, from a technical aspect, of course, it's super important to warm up. I mean, I still do that when I'm on tour with Brit Floyd. Like, singers, what we are is we're vocal athletes. So singing is an athletic activity. It's muscular, and it requires a lot of coordination and a lot of stamina, a lot of grounding. So professional singers, it's not unusual for them to like actually do physical stretches other than just warming up. Like, we all know that that's what we do, but we also do a lot of physical stretching. We have to get massage therapy on our neck, on our throat, on our jaw. So that there's a whole technical aspect of preparation. But in terms of like mindset and like getting in the mood, I remember that song as being very like not entirely angry, but just very like moody, and a lot of attitude, because it's a song about being completely stuck between a rock and a hard place, like not knowing what to do and being confused and feeling like betrayed. And so those are really dark emotions, but you don't want to be on stage performing like you look like you're angry and completely enraged. Like that's not a good look. So I would just get into like this very like sassy attitude, and and again with the music, it just kind of came naturally. And plus, I recorded that song in the studio. I had plenty of like how do you call it, like method acting. I remember when I recorded it in the studio, he was like, pretend that you're in this and that, and I didn't need to pretend. And we didn't talk about it a lot, but I also do some acting, and when I play some roles, whether it's a TV show or like a movie, I use a lot of method acting, and I do that with singing as well. Because it's when you're singing on stage, you're performing, so it's not that different than acting. You're playing a role, you're interpreting something, you're trying to convey an emotion, you're trying to convince the audience that this is how you feel, this is how it's a whole experience. It's very like, yeah.
You captured the vibe of that song in the music video for Damned, and there's also a music video for Give Me the Music. You've done quite a few music videos at this point. Is there a favorite music video shoot that you've done? Is there anyone that stands out? Maybe some of them it's like a long day and it's you have to do it as part of the process, but maybe there was one where it was like a lot of fun or it turned out perfect. Any insight into the music video shoots?
So I think that my favorite was probably the first shoot for "Oh, I Owe It All to You." It was my first ever music video shoot. It was a night shoot, so I had to
Is
stay
that
up
where
all
you're in the
night.
streets with the dancers and everything? Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So I had to stay up all night the night before to, make sure, I was. So I showed up like around dinner time, and we filmed until the wee hours of the morning. So 5, 6, 7 a.m. So they were telling me, try to get as much sleep as you can during the day. And I couldn't sleep during the day. I was way too excited. And, so I stayed up like almost 48 hours in total. Um, it was amazing. It was amazing. Not only was my first video shoot, so I was super excited. I had E-Talk backstage, like interviewing me. And I was just like, but then I had all these amazing, incredible dancers and the whole vibe. And in between takes, I would be able to see some shots. And I worked with Harv Glazer, who's the director, who's absolutely incredible. Um, just a lot of fun, costume changes. It was it was very empowering. I felt on top of the world. Like even though I was super sleep deprived, I felt so lucky, just like incredibly grateful. And looking back on that video, I still get that emotion again. It was a lot of fun.
So there was a music video for that single, which was the second single, and there was a music video for "Fallen for You." There was no music video for the first single? Was it they just used the footage from winning Canadian Idol maybe to promote that song, or?
I don't know. We didn't because that was my first single. There was no time to go in and do a video shoot. Um, but yeah,
You had to start
Fallen
working
for
on
You.
that album right away. That was the priority. So.
Exactly, exactly. That was like, and because the winter single, it was released the morning after I won. Like it was there ready to go. Just like, choop. It
So was it the top two or the top three that had recorded the song? Just
was actually
in
top
case
four.
in case whoever won, all four were ready.
All four of us recorded it. Me, Chad Doucette, Tyler Lewis, and Craig Sharp. And we all did it on the same day. We were all there, like taking turns. Like Tyler was in the studio doing his like rock version of Meant to Fly, and I was, up there like whatever, drinking tea or eating snacks, just like waiting for my turn. And Rob Wells, bless him, because he had to adapt the version. Four different versions. One of them had to be more rocky. One of them had to be a little bit more like alternative. One of them had to be almost a little bit like country-ish. But like we said at the beginning of our chat, a good song is a good song. So whatever style, whatever arrangement, it's gonna sound good.
And also we talked about a good producer being open to all genres of music. So that's an example that because he's a lover of all music, he was able to adapt the same song into different genres based on the style of the singer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Rob is incredible.
So at the tail end of the promo for the Give Me the Music album, Beyonce, one of the biggest artists in the world, she does a global tour. And for 4 of the Canadian dates, you were the opening act. This is Queen Bee. This is Beyonce. Can you give us any insight into what it's like to be on the same bill as Beyonce? I saw her once at a festival in Philadelphia, and there's a reason why she's one of the all-time greats.
She is an absolute legend. I couldn't believe it when my manager called me and said like, okay, well, I have great news. We've been asked to be the opening act for Beyonce's Canadian tour, and I was like absolutely blown away. it was it was surreal. So the first date that we did, I forget if it was Edmonton or it wasn't Vancouver. I think it might have been Edmonton, and it was the first. Of course, she does arena shows. Of course, she doesn't do little small theaters. She does huge, huge, huge amphitheaters and arenas. So first night it was about sound check. She had just finished her sound check. I was backstage with my team and my band, and my manager came to get me and said, you know, Beyonce's tour manager, she wants to introduce the two of you. So I was like, oh my goodness. So she brings me over to the side of the stage, and she's no makeup on. Her hair's down, no crazy Sasha Fierce hairstyle yet. She's in her robe. And I meet her, and she's just like, "Oh, hi, thank you so much for doing the tour with us." And then she pulls me in for a hug, and she looks at me and she says, "God, you're so beautiful." And I just literally melted right there on the spot. I was like, "Oh my God." Beyonce just hugged me and said I was beautiful, and she thanked me for doing the show with her. Like, anyways, doesn't get better than that. Beautiful human, loved her aura, loved her vibe. She was very warm. Her whole team, her whole band, they were so good to us. They let us, they gave us all the time we needed to sound check. They, anyways, they were so gracious and amazing. It was a beautiful experience. And I watched her show every single one of those dates. So every night was just better and better. I don't know how she does it. She's a machine.
I feel like you lived 10 lifetimes in between the moment where they said, Beyonce would like to meet you, and when you actually met her. Like in those few moments, I feel like you lived several lifetimes of like the self-talk and like the excitement and the doubt and like all these things. How do you prepare for a Beyonce moment?
You don't. And you know what kills me is I don't have any pictures with her. Because in 2009, my phone was, first of all, I didn't have a smartphone. I had like one of the first Blackberries or something. Your phone now, it's glued to our hand. We have access to it all the time. When you live such an iconic moment, of course, what do? You take a picture right away. Back then, I had just gotten on Facebook. I don't think I was on Instagram yet. So nobody thought to take a picture of me and her. And it just kills me to this day. But, it's here. It's in my memory. And that's all that matters.
You're also a professional, so it's like you also don't want to ask her for a picture, and she wasn't done up yet in her stage outfit.
Correct.
So
Correct. But
so
if it
you're
happened today, I would
we'll
have asked
just
her.
yeah we'll just say you were a professional back then, and it wasn't a lack of a camera. So the Never Get Enough EP from 2015. So there's 5 songs, and then you have 2 French versions from 2 of the 5 songs. So there's 7 songs total on this EP. The 2 French versions actually have like 3 to 5 times more plays on Spotify than the English versions. Like people are loving the French ones. I was curious, why was it important to you to include French versions on the album? And has that opened up any opportunities for you in the French market or the Quebec market, because you do have the recorded songs in French?
So, I'm my first language is French. I was raised mostly in French, learned English at a very, very young age, but born and raised in Quebec, where we speak French. So my roots are very, very close to my heart, very important to me. So it was important that I embraced that. And also I wanted to sing in French. I wanted to sing in my mother tongue. Like I had wanted that since the beginning. I remember being, in a meeting with the execs at Sony on the first record and thinking like, can we do a French something? Can we do a French song? Can we do like a French version? It was time. Time was just lacking, and I understand that. But I remember from day one, I wanted to sing in French. So, and what's great about the EP is that I was super involved. It was my project. I got funding for it. I handpicked my team of writers. I worked with Rob Wells, again, who produced it. Chris Ward, Liz Rodriguez, who are amazing songwriters. Like, you should check out their resume. They're absolutely amazing, incredible credits. And I just wanted to get in the room with people that I love, talented people who knew could bring out the best in me as a writer. So I co-wrote every single one of those songs. That EP is very, very much me, because it was my baby. It was my project. So doing the French versions was very important to me. The French version of Bitter Meat Sweet, which is called À mes 16 ans d'ici, it did really well on French radio. So I was finally happy that um, people could hear me in French finally, because people were asking me all the time, like, when are you going to sing in French? When are you going to produce some French music? You know, it's your roots, and you know, not everyone knows how much work and how much patience and sometimes hardships can go into writing a record and waiting for funding, waiting to shop it around, getting it distributed, waiting for the inspiration to write the music, rewriting different versions, self doubt, starting over. Like it's sometimes it can take years to produce a record. So yeah, all this to say that I'm really proud that I finally was able to release French music. It was a gift to myself, but it was also a gift to my audience, especially for my audience in Quebec. And one day when I do get back to recording and when I make a comeback, it'll definitely have a lot more French and maybe even Spanish
I was
because
going to say you also speak Spanish, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm very rusty because I don't get to practice it very often. My husband's Italian, so we live part-time in Italy. So I'm almost more fluent in Italian than in Spanish now, which I'm embarrassed to say, but anyway, it's still a gift. I can still say I speak four languages. I'm very, very, privileged to have that, to be able to say that.
So my two favorite songs from the EP are Use Your Imagination and For You to Love Me. And
Mm.
I'd love to dive into the Brit Floyd stuff. So you joined Brit Floyd in 2018. This is a Pink Floyd tribute band. They started 12 years ago and regarded as one of the most successful and authentic tribute bands in the world. So this is no joke. This is like legit. I've been hearing about this band forever. Pink Floyd is one of my all-time favorite bands. The album Wish You Were Here, I always say, is in my three favorite albums of all time. How did you end up in Brit Floyd? They don't just take anybody. Like they are taking world-class musicians. So for you to join that band is that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Very, very proud to be a part of that production. So between 2011 and 20 late 2017, I guess, I was working a lot in Quebec. I was in a few different cover bands. One of them was with a band called Les Vikings, and what they did was a lot of like classic covers. So we would tour all the Quebec summer festivals. We would do all the rock classics, Led Zeppelin, Iron Maiden, Aerosmith, Pink Floyd. So I was already doing some covers. And when the band leader from that band asked me like, "Hey, have you ever heard, The Great Gig in the Sky by Pink Floyd?" I was always very familiar with Pink Floyd. Who isn't? It's like timeless, music. And I was like, "Yeah, of course I know that song. It's a huge iconic song, but like I could never sing that. Are you crazy?" But he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have the range. You have the pipes. Just learn it and just have fun with it." So, I learned that song, which is anybody who's not familiar with that song, it's a huge moment in the Dark Side of the Moon album, and it's a wordless song, and it's about death. So it's a very, very powerful moment, and there are no words. It's just literally ad libs and oohs and ahs, and it's very ethereal. And um, so I learned it, and I ever since like I would say 2013. So it's been 10 years. Wow, I can't believe it. It's been 10 years that song is like I've really it's come into my life, and I see that song as like my Mount Everest as a singer, because it's a tall order. It's really, really, really hard to sing, and once you achieve it, you always want to get better. You always want to perfect it. So back to your question, I was part of that band in Quebec, and we did like a short US tour in the Midwest. And there was a fan video that ended up on YouTube of me performing The Great Gig in the Sky. I think it was in Boston. And fast forward to like a year later, I get a message from the musical director from Brit Floyd. His name is Damien. He's like, "Hi, I'm Damien from Brit Floyd." Of course, I knew who they were. I was like, "We found a performance of yours on YouTube. We were very impressed. We're looking for a singer to join our tour, blah, 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 blah. Are you interested?" No audition, nothing. Just like, We saw you, we're impressed. Are you available? So that was like, okay. So it started off as like a 1 month. I was filling in for their previous singer who was pregnant at the time, who wanted to stop touring with good reason. So, and then they liked me. I liked them. It was a great experience, and they asked me to join on to come on board basically full time. It's a huge tour. It's like 8 months out of the year, 150 shows a year worldwide. It's basically like a full time job almost. So the rest is history. I've been with the band since early 2018, and yeah, it's a fantastic gig. It's a lot of fun.
So I have a fan question sent in that ties in with what you just said. So Tyler Finney asks, does she do the vocal solo for Great Gig in the Sky? If she does, I'll marry her right now. So
Oh my God.
that's from Tyler. I told him that I have bad news for you, but I actually saw a video of you performing that song on YouTube. It has almost 500,000 views. Like it's that video has gone out there. Is that the hardest song to sing in the Pink Floyd discography?
I mean, for a woman, yes, I would say. Um, Pink Floyd is obviously like mostly male lead vocals, Roger Waters and David Gilmour. Um, and in the very early years, Sid Barrett, like people
The
led their
debut
vocals.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, but mostly Waters and Gilmour. But Pink Floyd, if even if you look at their concert videos online, like they had female vocalists with them all the time, and that song was interpreted by many, many, many singers, many different ways, many different versions of that song has been done. A lot of bands have split the solo into three different singers who each do their own, because that song is divided into like three parts. In this show, only one singer does it. Even the singers before me, Brit, Floyd always used just one vocalist, because that's how the original was. Claire Torrey, she got into the studio and she did her own version. She was just one woman singing her heart out. So yeah, for me, definitely the hardest song, but also the most rewarding. It's I like to tell people when I'm asked about it, it's quite an honor to be able to do that piece of music because it's so iconic. It's a huge moment in the show. There's a lot of pressure because people expect you know greatness when they hear that song. They don't want to hear like a half-assed version of it. They want to see somebody who's going to sing their heart out and pour all their emotion into that song. So it's a very tall order, but it's a privilege to have that role. Yeah, it's great.
So this year is the 50th anniversary of Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, I would say one of their three most iconic albums. The upcoming tour, you guys are focusing on The Dark Side of the Moon. Is that correct?
Yeah, that this year is all about the dark side. So
The Dark Side.
the
That's
dark
funny. The Dark
Yeah,
Side.
the tour is called 50 Years of Dark Side. So we actually kicked off the tour in Hamilton, Ontario, which is where we had our rehearsals. So 51 dates done, 44 to go this summer, and then we're going to have like a longer break in September and beginning of October, and then we'll do another. I don't know how many dates, but yeah, this will be a huge year of honoring one of the greatest rock albums of all times. And next year, every year we change the set list. So next year will be an entirely new set list. And of course, there's a lot of Dark Side of the Moon music in this playlist this year. But we can't skip, the classics. We can't skip Another Brick in the Wall. We can't skip
Comfortably Numb.
Wish You Were Here, Comfortably Numb. We like to take a dive into the old Sid Barrett era tracks. So this year we do like See Emily Play, which is like a lesser known Pink Floyd song. There's a bit for everybody, even if you're not like a diehard Pink Floyd fan. Most people come out of that show just like blown away. It's a treat for the eyes, for the ears. There's lasers, and it's a great show. It's a 3-hour show.
So the closest show to Ottawa on the upcoming tour is Peterborough, which is 3 hours, 3.5 hours. The 51 dates that already passed, was there like an Ottawa area show or Montreal or
No, unfortunately not yet.
use your
Usually,
influence from within the band. You got to get
of
a gig
course,
out here,
of course.
Ottawa, Montreal, somewhere in there for us local
We usually
yokels.
do. We usually do. We play Montreal usually every year. This year is a bit different. We have a whole new management. So it's like it was a lot of plus we missed like a year and a half of COVID lockdowns, canceled, postponed. Like we had a lot of dates to honor. So we will definitely come back to Montreal or Ottawa. We usually play the Place des Arts in Montreal, which is a beautiful venue. The last time we came to Ottawa, we were at TD Place. I
Nice.
would love to play on the Quebec side. I would love to play like at the Slush Puppy Arena, or even like the Salle Odyssée in Gatineau. But yeah, we'll definitely come back. Like I'm 100% sure. And
We're
I
just
really hope.
putting it out there into the ether so that the rock and roll gods, the booking agents feel it and they include it in the next run of shows after
Oh, he
that.
knows our booking agent. I keep busting his ears like, book a show in Ottawa. Come on. He's working on it.
There you go. We have another fan question. This is sent in from Laura Newick. She asks, how does she manage her personal life and her professional life so well? Then she has a comment. She says, she has a wonderful voice. I saw the Pink Floyd tribute band in San Diego. So that's from Laura.
Amazing. Yeah, we're actually going right back there in just a few weeks. So I'll see you there. Um, well, I'm very lucky because I joining Brit Floyd is how I met my husband. So when I'm on the road, I'm with my husband. So we both realize how privileged we are because it's being on the road for so long can be very, very lonely and very difficult when you have a family back home. That being said, yes, I'm on the road with my husband, who's my best friend, and I love everybody in the band. We get along. We're like a family. It's amazing. But every now and then I need to come back here to my roots. I need to come back to Gatineau or Elmer, and I love spending time in Montreal because I have a lot of my dearest friends who live there. I like to come back to my roots every now and then. I need to recharge and be with, my family, my parents, my friends, my little brother. Like I need that time. So as much as I'm grateful that I have my husband with me on the road, like I have a whole other, you know, there's other parts of me that need recharging. And that's why every couple of months I need to get my fix, my Ottawa Gatineau fix. Yeah.
So I was able to infiltrate the Brit Floyd camp, and I have some kind words from drummer Randy Cook. So Randy says,
You're
Eva's
kidding me.
this is a deep dive. So he says Eva is not only an incredible vocalist and talented actor, she's super sweet and fun to hang out with on tour, and she has a crazy sense of humor that I love. Happy face emoji. Not to mention, she's Canadian like myself, which means she's a beloved fellow hoser. Hosette? So that's from Randy.
Randy, I love you. He's amazing. He is incredible. He's so much fun to have on tour. That's crazy. Yeah, he actually just did the second half of this first leg, and he'll be back later this year as well. Yeah, he's a lot of fun. I love that I have a fellow Canadian with me in the band. Yeah.
Someone
They
that
make fun
truly
of
understands what it's like to be
me.
Canadian.
Yes. Oh, bless him. He's amazing. He's a busy guy. We're very lucky to have him. He tours left and right. He tours with Colby. He tours with a bunch of projects. He's Smash Mouth. Like he's
He's
amazing.
legit.
Yes. Oh my God.
So as we wrap up, I did want to I did want to touch on your sobriety because this is important. People need to hear this. So you talked about being on the road and there's all these tour dates and you're not home that often. And what most people that aren't musicians, what they don't get is the music industry is one that kind of promotes drinking and promotes drug usage. You're on the road, away from friends, away from family. Alcohol is pretty much free and pretty much unlimited. All those around you want to have a good time and see you having a good time. So it's very easy to fall into that trap. At what point did you realize that drinking started to be a problem for you? And how are you able to get through that part of your life?
Well, that's the whole other conversation. We could do a part two. Um, but I think that for me, I just do way better without it. Um, I'm the last person to judge or shame anybody who chooses to consume alcohol, because God knows I've consumed my share. But it brings out the worst in me. And I really don't want to get too preachy, but we tend to forget that it's a drug. Yes, it's legal. Yes, it can be enjoyed in moderation, and it can be really fun. It is a drug. It's a substance that has neurotoxins in it, and it's addictive, and blah blah blah. So it's super risky. And I think that as long as we continue raising awareness about it, like, I think I'm really really proud of where we're going in our society, because we're talking about it more and more. Kind of taking away the stigma of addiction and mental health issues that all intertwines together. But for me, I just do better without it. Every aspect of my life is just better since I kicked it. I sleep better. I'm more healthy. My relationships are better. Not to mention my bank account. Like, if you're somebody who drinks on the regular, it can be pretty expensive long term. So yeah, I'm just done with it. I'm in a phase in my life now where I'm just going to prioritize doing things that are healthy for me. And I really don't miss it. Like, don't get me wrong. Once in a while, I'll get a little bit of nostalgia. Like, it's a beautiful day. I would love a nice, I don't know, sangria by the pool, or if everybody around me like partying, having a good time, and like cutting loose. Sometimes I get a little bit like, ugh. But then I remember where I could end up. Because me, like I said before, I'm an all or nothing kind of gal. So it's hard for me to just have one or two. I'll want more, and then my little evil, how do you call these, horns will start to come out, and I'll make bad decisions, and so it's better to just leave it, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, the pandemic's been difficult for a lot of people with the isolation and the loneliness and the mental health issues. For those that have turned to alcohol and drugs during that time as a way to cope with reality, I suppose. Do you have any advice on maybe how to move away from the alcohol as the coping mechanism?
It's really, really tough. I think the first important step is just to be honest with yourself and say, like, this isn't working for me. Or, like, the three hardest words in the world, other than, I'm sorry or whatever, is I need help. That is really hard to say. It's hard on the ego. It's hard to swallow your pride. It's hard to admit when you don't have it all together, right? Or that you don't have everything under control. It's very humbling. So I think just talking to somebody and saying, you know what, like, I'm trying to cut back, or I'm not feeling this. I don't feel great. I don't feel at my best. We are very lucky. We live in a country where we have access to a lot of resources. A lot of them are free. So talk to your doctor, talk to, somebody who can point you in the direction of either a program, a recovery program, or, even counseling. There's absolutely no shame, because the reason we have a hard time quitting addictive things like drink or cigarettes is because they are addictive substances. It's not for a lack of willpower. So there's a lot of help out there, and we're very privileged to have access to them. But yeah, first step is just to say it to somebody, just admit it. Like, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to quit this, and then that's half the battle right there.
So the final three questions. Here we go. Can you handle three final questions?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a tradition on the podcast where the guest will leave a question for the next guest without knowing who it is, male or female, what industry, what age. So I'll start with the question that's left for you. So on the last episode, we had the Dreamboats, a popular band from California, and their question for you, without knowing you were the next guest, is what was the moment in your musical career where you could look at your parents and feel that they were proud of your accomplishments in the music industry?
It was probably at a really young age, because they were my number one fans since the beginning. I mean, my absolute best support system. I have a vivid memory of performing at a restaurant in Ottawa called Villa Lucia. And I remember my dad being so proud because I was going to join him on stage and we were going to do the duet of the Phantom of the Opera. But I remember being in the bathroom with my mom and she was helping me with my makeup and she was helping me with my dress and my hair. And that night, I remember, and my whole family was sitting there. They had a whole table. I remember that night, like feeling, and I was 9. It was probably around the same time as the Homegrown Cafe. I remember the feeling of looking out at my family and my parents and being like, they're so proud of me. Like that feeling was just so special. Yeah.
That's amazing. And can you now pay it forward and provide a question that I will ask the next guest?
That was really, really tough, especially not knowing who it's for. Um, I would probably ask, because I'm really interested in like who's the human behind the artist. Because it's funny, you can see an artist and see them perform and hear their music and know who they are as an icon, as a performer, as an artist. But I'm very interested in the human side. So I would ask something like, if what would you be doing with your life? What fulfills you the most completely outside of the music industry? So a lot of people are asked like, oh, if you weren't a singer, what would you do? And it always ends up being an answer that's still remotely related to the music industry, but like try to completely get out of that whole field. Like, I don't know, the medical field, scientific, teacher, whatever. Like, what would they be doing? What would fulfill them the most if they could do something completely unrelated to the music industry?
Perfect. That is a good question. And when you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
Oh my God.
These are the tough final questions.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I guess it's going to sound weird, but I'm grateful. I'm as grateful for the hardships that I went through than for the highlights. It would be easy to say like, oh, I'm grateful for, the amazing experience. I'm grateful that I sang at the Olympics. I'm grateful that yes, I am. But I need to remind myself on the daily that I have to be as equally grateful for the depression I went through, for, my alcohol addiction, for the times where I had absolutely no joy of living, that I was feeling really without a purpose, questioning my entire existence. Like, I'm more grateful for those moments because I'm able to appreciate the past victories and the victories that are to come um, in my life, because I still have a lot of life to live, I hope.
And if you could go back in time and you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could share words of advice with all the wisdom you've accrued over the years, all the triumphs and failures and the lessons and the mentorship and the experience, if you could go back and whisper words into cute little 10-year-old Eva's ear that's sitting there to help guide her through this human existence, this human experience, what words of advice do you provide?
I think that at 10 years old, I already knew what like an intuition was. Like when people say like, oh, listen to that little voice. I think I already knew what it was. I can't explain it, but I would just probably hold her hand and say like, that little voice that tells you, when you want to do something, or when you're scared, when you feel in danger, when you feel like you don't want to do something, that's your intuition. Listen to that little voice, no matter what no matter what people tell you, because I think that there's a lot of times in my career, in my life, um, where your logic wants to take over, when your sixth sense and your intuition and your gut really should be leading the way.
Yeah, your intuition sometimes already knows what you have yet to figure out. So
It really
that's
does.
that's good advice. Where can our listeners go to find you online? So website or social media, if they want to stay in the loop with what you're up to, if they want to maybe send a message saying, I love the interview or I loved your music, where can they go? Where do people go?
So I'm pretty much on most platforms. Instagram at Eva Avila Official. If you want to follow our tour dates with Brit Floyd, it's at Brit Floyd. I'm on Facebook. I have a fan page. I love reading my messages. I try to respond to all of them. I am on Twitter, but I'm not very active on there, I have to say. And I do have a website that is way overdue to be updated. It's evaavila.net. Yeah. Yes, people can email me through my website. I do get those emails. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram are probably the biggest platforms.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have been with you all the way from the beginning, either starting at, say, 19 with Canadian Idol or all the way back at 2 years old in the Byward market? What do you say to those fans that have been with you through this journey?
Thank you for walking alongside me. Thank you for your loyalty, and thank you for the encouragement. And I feel like, without all that support and love, and I still remember during the Idol days, I would be so overcome with emotions to see how many people in my hometown would be there to cheer me on. And I wouldn't be here without that, without the love and support. So just infinitely, infinitely grateful. No matter what I do, right? Because I wear a lot of hats as an artist, like whether it's my own music, whether it's me as an actress, whether it's me with Brit Floyd, whether it's me, just being a sobriety advocate, sharing the message and raising awareness, being a spokesperson. Like, I wear so many hats, and there's a pool of people who are there like ride or die, like just loyal to whatever I do because they're a fan of Eva, the individual, not just the performer, not just the pop star, not just the artist. So yeah, definitely grateful for that, for seeing me, for who I am behind all the other facades.
So as we wrap up, I want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a singer-songwriter. I want to acknowledge you for inspiring people to go out and audition for seasons 5 and 6 of Canadian Idol. They looked at you on season 4 and they saw that someone could go through and they could have success and release an album, gold, platinum, multi-platinum singles, all that stuff. So you inspired the next few years of contestants, including myself on season 5. I want to thank you for putting out great music that people are still listening to this day. That's the beauty of the internet, of streaming, that you can just go and listen to anything you want. So you can see that your streams are still going there and people are listening and loving the music. I want to thank you for being a great ambassador to the Ottawa-Gatineau region where I'm from. So you represent us and our people to the highest degree, and I appreciate that. I want to thank you for your work with Brit Floyd. So you're helping the future generations of Pink Floyd fans. You're sharing that music to the next generation. What I believe to be one of the greatest bands of all time. I want to thank you for supporting the podcast by providing a quote for Ricky from the Sheepdogs. Back around January, February, you provided some kind words for Ricky and we got him right in the feels. And last but not least, I want to thank you for sitting down with me for this interview. I really appreciate it. So thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Joelle. Thank you so much. This was great. I'm very, very flattered, very, very humbled that you invited me on, and thank you for doing such great homework and deep diving into my life and my career. And it's very, very humbling. I'm super grateful. Thank you. You made my day.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the kind words. So to the Eva fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is, who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.